I'm Neil. I'll let this segue into my About Me slide. I'm currently a developer at Think Alpha. We're a trading firm out of New York, Chicago. I don't really know because I've never met anybody in my company. I love remote work. I'm former Costco, Simplicize, Opportune, and AutoFi. Worked 4 years at Opportune with William and Matthew. And yeah, Costco, I spent 15 years there. Thought I was going to retire till I found the Facebook ad and went to Simplicize and spent 4 years there and kick-started doing this full time. So,
You wait your 6 months stint in between.
yeah, I left out some fun details. I left Opportune twice.
Yeah.
One time right at the beginning of the pandemic, we went to go to Sky Slope and they reneged their offer on me. Somehow I got rolled back to Opportune. Spent another year or so and then Matthew pulled me off to HRP. That lasted for about a month before they dissolved our fired both of us, laid us off. I don't know. That was fun though. I worked there 1 month and got paid for over 5 because they forgot to turn my severance off. I think I got like a $10,000 401k sitting with them for working 1 month. Yeah, so a couple of ventures getting out of Opportune, but then I eventually landed in AutoFi, and that's been fabulous because I met 2 gentlemen there who eventually pulled me over to Think Alpha, and Think Alpha's a blast. So I just hope funding doesn't run out. But it's a blast while there's still money. Let me see, really other direction. I'm a recent empty nester, highly recommend it. If you haven't had kids, don't recommend it. But my oldest just graduated from Monterey. My middle daughter's a junior at Chico, and my youngest just went down to San Diego. So I'm all over the state right now.
I'll take my friend, my oldest, off to college tomorrow, so.
Nice.
Half,
Step in the right
half
direction.
emptiness, yeah.
Yeah, youngest gone. It's weird.
Yeah.
Get to skinny dip a lot more, but so I'm a React developer. I don't even consider myself much of a front end. I'm pretty pigeonholed into being a React UI developer. And I love working with React until React gets in the way, which is where we're at now, with signals. So what are signals? The screen's kind of in the way, but I found this definition on a lot of different places. I wish I had cited it. Signals are a modern, efficient solution for reactive state, UI management. I'm already bored. It's an accurate definition, but let's try to go a little further. So what are signals? I like to think of them as pub sub. There is no publish, there is no subscribe that you have to worry about. You just write to these things like they're a letter of R. But there is pub sub running behind the scenes. They will absolutely drop into any pub sub system. They're an event system, so if you got event-based architecture, they're a great primitive for that. But they're a reactive primitive. And that's really the point for me. These things are a TC39 proposal. They have the potential to eventually be like Promise. So I remember coming to my first meetup, James talked about promises when they were still like Bluebird promises or jQuery promises that you would bring into your app. That's where we're at with signals right now. I found this quote, I don't know why I didn't pull it out. I never validated it. I never looked at knockout, but the idea is signals aren't new. PubSub's been around. This is just a different interpretation of them. Signals in the wild, there's a lot of frameworks and support for this. Angular now has first class support for signals. I didn't look into it. I have a bad relationship with Angular. Solid has excellent support for signals, although their API is going to be a little bit different from what I showed you here. There's Quick and Flutter. I read about those, don't know much about them. Svelte has first class support for signals. This is excellent for us because we've been transitioning a couple of our high touch Leaf nodes to Svelte and really seeing some dramatic performance increases. And being able to use signals lets us have an easy migration path. Vue, the API is identical. They're not strictly signals. I imagine if signals ever become a standard, you will adopt them. Preact and React via Preact's library. And that's what we're going to talk about with signals today. We're using Preact's flavor of signals because they have excellent integration with React. So let's get into what signals are. I was really hoping we'd be on like a big old screen. I'm not sure how well you guys will be able to see this code. But to create a signal, you just You import signal from Preact, and you assign a default value to it. This is a lot like useState in React. If you want to read the signal, you read its value. And that's important because that counter right there is a stable reference. It never changes no matter how much you update the signal. So you read it, and now you have the 0 up there. And I just did that reading there for illustration. You would actually use counter.value directly in your JSX of React. If you want to update it, I just created an incrementer and a decrementer. You just write to the value. So in this case, I'm reading the previous value, adding 1, reading the previous value, subtracting 1, and just assign the new value. Away you go. And now, you have a React component that you can increment or decrement. The reactivity, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it starts getting powerful. So, computed here is a lot like useMemo in React. So I have an is-even, we're computing whether it's even or odd, so that is-even is now a signal, its dot value is a boolean of true or false. We have the parity is a string signal, so its dot value is a string of even or odd, based on its reading of the is-even signal. Now what's important here is, even when we update these, this code doesn't run until you read it. If you were in React with a memo, the second you updated it, the memo runs. This is very contrived, doesn't really matter, but in a much more complex example, deferring the reading or deferring the computation until you read can become very, very powerful and give you quick optimizations. So now we have our even and odd up there. So even odd. Set that to a negative number now for the next. You can also have effects. So you can react to the signal changing. In this case, I'm using it to bound the value to not be negative. So you can see it took it right to 0 when we had a negative number, and now we can still go up, but we're bounded, and we can't go down. That signal's in a nutshell. But like, what have we solved? So really sorry, it's too small, you probably can't see it, but left-hand side is the signal version of our state machine. Right-hand side is the React version. So setting a signal, use state. We have our using the setter from use state versus just setting the value. Differences are there is no dependency array. Don't have to worry about the dependency array anymore. There's no rules of hooks. You can use these in any order you want. They don't even have to be. This example here wouldn't even be good to put it in React, although Preact does give you a way of using signals directly in React. This is module scope here. And then the other difference is this code runs with every update, whereas this code only runs upon reading it. All right, so a little more involved. This is what I work on every day. This is our trading and research platform for stocks. Took this snapshot about a week ago. We stream an unholy amount of data. So most of this is not, what you're seeing on the screen here is not going to use signals. This is all AG grid. Although we had to bail AG grid out of React because, boy, the React reconcile gets in the way a lot. What is interesting, will this work, kind of, are these widgets up here. We wrote those about a year ago and naively just wrote them with a prop and had an RxJS subscription passing values down, which caused the whole app to re-reconcile, which just train wrecked all the performance of this. Because us as developers don't normally run it like this most of the time. We didn't see this problem until it got pushed out to prod. We had a small panic attack from the C-suite. So roll back, roll back. So we rewrote it again, still using RxJS at a dangerously set inner HTML, and we're able to do this without any React reconciliation. But for those of you who used RxJS, my condolences, I can't stand it. It's powerful, does a lot of great things. I don't need most of it, I don't want to learn most of it. It's a pain in the ass. So then we discovered signals. Still using RxJS to talk to our sockets, but now they just update a signal. We pass the signal to those. no React reconciliation, no performance issues. And we've used this pattern in a lot of places in this app. It's just become our reactive primitive so that we can abstract most of our business logic to vanilla JS. And each one of these widgets gets its own model, and the signal is the reactive primitive of that model. All right, let's go into something a little more complex, and I'll try to show one of the foot guns that I've experienced with useState and React. Yeah, we'll get to that. So here's a little to-do component. Let's render that in a more of an app here. And I instrumented this so that every time we make an update, we can see what gets updated. And at this stage of the game, life is good. I make an update, just the to-do component renders because that's what's managing the state. The stats renders, the form renders, and the list renders because they're children of that to-do component. But nothing else in the app is rendering. So it's contained, it's performant, we don't have any problems. But your product manager comes along and they're like, no, we need the stats up here. Stats aren't good enough there, they gotta be in the header. All right, so we look at what React tells us to do, which is to hoist your state up. You put it as low as you can, but then you hoist it up when you need to. So we'll hoist the state up and see what happens. So I'll go through a little bit of code here. Here's the to-do component, basic state machine done with React State. We'll just extract that to a hook, be a lot easier to think about. We're gonna move that hook up to the app. Now you have to apologize, Highlight.js, which is what Reveal.js uses, does not like JSX. So pretend that's nice clean JSX and not weird quotes wrapped around my variables. But we'll now pass our stats into our header. We have our aside, we have our main, we have the to-do statistics, the to-do form, and the to-dos list all getting their different pieces from our state manager. And we end up with the same thing again, but now we got stats up there. Except what happens when we go to make a change? Suddenly our performant app is now rendering all over the place. Everything's rendering, because I put the state all the way up high. Simple thing to do. And in this app, it's not a problem. React's plenty fast enough. But like in my app, that's it, game over. Roll back on Friday. Don't want to do that. So how can we fix this? Let's try converting it to signals. So here's our React state hook that we created. We'll convert that to signals. First thing we'll do is take the use state, we'll make it a signal. So great, now we have a signal. Next thing, take the use memo, we'll make those computeds. So now they're all computed methods. And then our to-dos, we have them running through use callback because we want stable references to those callbacks. This isn't going to be a hook anymore. We don't need any of that garbage. So they're just simple little functions that will add a to-do, toggle to-do, delete a to-do. Just thinking about my counter, for example. And then we'll pull all that out of the hook, put this in module scope, and we're good to go. Whether this should be in module scope, probably not. We do other tricks to avoid that, but for the sake of brevity, we'll just throw it in the module. Now we can import these things as we need them. We can crop drill them through our React app. Hell, we can go into the React app, just import that thing directly, and then import the same thing in another one. They're going to have the same reference. So now we get the same app. This time, when I update, only 3 updates. In fact, we got a quick win there. The form here is no longer updating because it's not listening to anything from the state other than the handler that added to do. So now, if we had done this from the start, we could have moved that up, never shot ourselves in the foot. And again, this app is contrived. You haven't had a performance issue yet, but in a more realistic app, it can quickly blow up on you. All right, I blew through that. That was signals. That's everything. Then a few more parts here we'll go over. First off, if you care about it, this presentation, I can probably have someone share this on Discord. But GitHub, Neil Holcomb, Signals React Talk. Don't look too hard at the code. Claude and I wrote this in a hack session over the last couple of evenings. Oops, long way. I'll do a couple details about how you actually use signals with React. I skipped over all of that. And comparison to a couple of the other signals libraries. This was some last minute stuff I threw in today. So React by default cannot react to a signal. React doesn't know anything about signals, doesn't know how to use them. So Preact provides a Babel transform You can install the Preact Signals React transform, add that to your Babel configuration, and then just use the signal in your component. Magic. I don't know how it works. I've read the code, I can't figure out the magic they're doing. We don't use this way because we don't have Babel at all in our app. So we use their use signals hook. You import that from the Signals React runtime. Just put that hook at the top of a React component that cares about a signal, read the signal, and now every time that signal changes, your React component will update. They're doing some kind of magic with stores behind the scenes where they have an effect wrapped around the component and they increment a counter which triggers the React component to re-render. The Babel method I kind of like a little better if you have Babel, because you don't have to worry about adding the use signals or not. And removing the use signals, it's only wrapped around your components if you're actually reading the signal in build time. But alas, we like use signals. And again, magic. I tried to make heads or tails and be smart and explain how it works. I don't know. It's cool though. We didn't talk about this, but they also have a batch. So you can do multiple sets, and you're only going to trigger one flush of the event system. That's nice. That's also magic. This is a really neat optimization for React, and we do use this where we can. So if you do count.value in your JSX, your React component is going to re-render with every update of that. But if you just set, oopsie, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was talking about here. This was actually the cool thing I did today. Now I don't know why I put .peak there. No, I screwed up my slides. The trick here is you're supposed to put just the count, just the signal, not its value. And Preact will automatically subscribe to that and update the DOM directly for you without engaging React at all. So we have a lot of fast moving data. We use this. Except for we have to change the color, because then we got to compute with the class name.
So this is not re-rendering the component to generate a new DOM, this is just like directly injecting new value into the DOM outside of React knowledge.
So it's kind of like what we do for our AG grid. We just render a div and say, hey, AG grid, the div's yours now. Preact say, this span's mine, and just re-renders. And if React ever did re-render, it's just going to render out that span again and at the current value, so it just works. See here, how bad did I screw up my slides? Okay, so we have this untracked. This is something I discovered today. We have this deal where I need to track market data, live market data. These updates are coming in about 3-4 times a second. And we need to look at the last time a stock traded. And when someone's buying an option, they want to find the strike price for their option. We might have, in the case of like NVIDIA, there might be 1,000 prices of those options trading right now. And so we want the menu to open up really close to the last traded price of that stock. So I peek at the market data without subscribing to it. I can see the last price and then scroll that menu right to where it needs to be. If I didn't do that, damn thing updates and jitters on you as you're trying to scroll. So it keeps trying to go back. So this is untracked, is one way of peeking at a value. And then, yeah, this was meant to be the other way. You can use count.peek, and now I'm getting the value without subscribing to it, so it won't change based on that value. Typically, you won't want to do this. Today was the first time I figured out a need for it. And I did all these slides in like 2 hours ago, so it's a little wonky. This talks more about using count directly without using count.value. And let's see that. Okay, so the Preact signals, just like I showed you, it has the dot value pattern. Solid signals is like identical to React useState. It gives you the value out and a setter. If you want to set the value, use the setter just like you would with useState. They have a create memo instead of a computed. And then they have a create effect instead of just effect. And then there's also the TC39 proposal uses a get on the signal or a set on the signal. And then they say that they're going to defer anything to do with effects to library authors. So based on other primitives, you'll write your own effect library. So, but we'll see what happens. It's still at stage 0. It's been at stage 0 for 2 years. I don't know when I expect to see it go anywhere. That's it. That's signals. Quick and dirty.
So would you say that it's like a drop-in replacement for use state and like use effect and like, or they're like,
It can be.
I mean, what's the overlap, I guess, between those?
The biggest thing for me is that it's not React. It's decoupled from React. So what we do is kind of reinvent Model View Controller. See if I can get back to the app here. So, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's like a blue line around this. Like this whole thing's a widget. There's 2 widgets down here. This dashboard's just full of widgets. We run every widget, we back it with a model, which is just a plain TypeScript class. The problem is that you update something on that, or even that thing might be like subscribing to our Redux store. How do I tell React about a change? You need some kind of a reactive primitive if you want to not use React state, which we wanted to break away from that. So we started with RxJS. We wrote this neat decorator, and every time we change a value, we can put an @reacts on our setter, I think, and then we would like increment a count, which would trigger the React update, and it worked pretty well, but it was kind of brute force. Anything changed in our class, the React component was depending on that class, the React component updated. We've since gone to signals, and now we get the fine-grained reactivity of only when that thing updates does the thing reading it update. And it's just all really elegant. So in most cases, React use state hooks are fine, but I've never been a fan of hooks. I'd prefer to go back to the create class API of React if it were me. And I like being able to write all my business logic completely decoupled from React, which is also what we do too, because now we can take these signals and then pass them into a Svelte component, which is like what we did for these up here. You can't see it, but there's like a special column over here where when you hover it, it will show you all the news related to that stock right now. That whole thing defers out to a Svelte component. There's quite a few other places where I'm fairly confident all of these tickers right here are signals going to Svelte components too, if I remember correctly.
Is it a hybrid React Svelte app then?
It is, yeah. I'd still say it's 99% a React app with a few leaf nodes out in Svelte. We'd like to migrate more of it, but the business doesn't care, of course.
I didn't even know you could mix them, so I don't know, learn many new things.
React's always had a really good story around mixing frameworks. When I was at Opportune, I rendered React in the Angular 1 app. And you can do the
I
inverse.
want to know whether that's still shipping in production today.
Probably.
Because you and I wrote a lot of React code that was shipping in production.
You did the whole admin area.
All admin was
I had a couple little nodes in the collection app,
Yeah.
but for all I know, it's still sitting there.
I pushed as hard as I could to get us to switch
Yeah.
over.
No, we lost the battle.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm the aide here as far as front-end frameworks go.
Sure.
All the data that's scrolling up there, is that being pushed from a backend
Mhm.
or?
C++ backend, we call it our table server.
Okay.
It all comes over sockets.
Okay. So is that handled automatically by the framework, or is that something else that you have to plug into the signals framework to make that happen?
It is automatical in that we have some great abstractions over it. All those abstractions go to RxJS.
Okay.
What we have done is written some abstractions on that, which take most of those RxJS subscriptions, we subscribe to it, and then write to signals.
Okay.
And then we propagate the signal throughout that. I would hazard a guess now that 90% of the direct UI code uses a signal and not an RxJS subscription anymore.
Okay, so you still have to write code to get the data from the backend. To
Yeah.
send to the signal.
We could go a layer deeper and remove the RxJS layer,
Yeah.
and when we're reading the sockets, just write directly to a signal instead.
Okay.
But, the first iteration of this will work for us, and it's worked so good, we haven't gone down and touched those abstractions since. But yeah, there's still a lot of RxJS power in this thing. That's pretty much what takes all that socket data and feeds it through the app. We just choose to use signals because it's much
refreshes only the parts that matter, that kind of stuff.
That's the reconciliation.
Yeah, so you run into the issue of just optimization, there's too much data, you're tripping over the framework, so it's just been bypassing all of that logic.
Yeah,
But so, I mean, it's just use effects without use in front of the.
it really is. It's a lot, yeah.
So what do you think about, do you think that would, it seems like it would be less complicated to add that as a feature to React to bypass the component hierarchy than it would be to,
I don't think that's ever going to happen. The React core team has a story that they believe in deeply, that they know how to do the reconciliation most efficiently. And that's why they rewrote React over the last 5 years with Fiber, which has a whole scheduling system for the reconciliation that can bail out to high-touch user events and do a lot of other good things. And I would say this is the only React app I've ever worked on where performance has actually become an issue.
I mean, high frequency trading is,
It's-
it breaks lots of things.
It's nuts. Luckily for us on the UI right now, we're still network bound. We can update faster than the server can feed us data. But as they keep improving the back end, we're gonna reach a point where it's not the network that's binding us up anymore. We're trying to get out ahead of that. So,
I was gonna ask, just comparing this to some, so I'm working on a React app that does not have anywhere near this need for reactivity.
yeah.
So my needs are much more modest. But I have occasionally run into like, okay, things are slow, why are things slow? And it is, and also just from a code perspective, I hate having to prop drill
Mm-hmm.
through 17 layers of components that do not need the thing just so I can get it down to the
Yep.
child. So like React story around that is like use a context.
Yeah.
Right, and so I can shove stuff from a child component into a context and then from another child component someplace else in the tree I can access that and nobody in between
Nobody in between cares.
needs to know or re-render. That's not enough scale to tackle this kind of performance issue.
It could be. It's a lot of setup. You know,
I hate how verbose context are.
very verbose. It's a lot of setup. Like I showed with the to-do app, like what's the easy path? Developer's always gonna take the quick easy path. And it's a foot gun with React hooks a lot of the damn time. With signals, it's not. If your needs are, if you're okay with a little bit of global state, just put those signals in module scope and then import them. So you can have, you know, a setter way up here in the DOM tree and something reading it way down here. You don't need to prop drill it. You just import it down here. You import the action up here, and it'll all just work without any context magic or any of that. You can also prop drill it safely. You know, if you try to prop drill your use state value, it changes every time. So every component going down the tree changes. But with a signal, it's a stable reference all the way down. So nothing re-renders until it looks at dot value.
I was gonna say the other thing that's tickled in my mind is a few places where we've use ref not for like DOM holding, but because hey, now I have a plain old JavaScript object
Yes.
that can be updated but does not cause re-renders.
Yes.
You know, but again, you're kind of working against the grain of how React wants to see the structure.
Yeah, and so be aware of that. Might regret this in a couple years when React 25 comes out. They have a better story around all that, and I wish it was easier to migrate to. But for right now, I don't know. I've never liked hooks. I don't like the rules of hooks. I don't like the dependency array. I've shot myself in the foot way too many times with performance.
So you said something earlier that you're using Svelte for performance reasons? Is that
Yeah.
right? So you find
We-
Svelte to be more performant than?
Yeah, we did some flame graph. So we did the update on those tickers up there where we were using dangerously set inner HTML to bypass the React render cycle. I forget exactly how it worked, but you can look at the frame graph and there's a lot of work going on because you watch those things after a FMOC announcement like we had this week
Yeah.
with that interest rate reduction, and Jesus, they start moving around. And then we rendered it with Svelte. It's like the flame graph just went away.
Cause Svelte, it has something, I have no idea.
Svelte
It has ruins,
pre-compiles.
but it also has a signals thing built in.
It does. They have the ruins, I think they're called.
Yeah.
We're not directly using that. We take the preact signals and use them directly in the Svelte component. And to be perfectly frank and honest, I don't actually know if the guy, genius on my team, did any magic to make that work. So it might be a little overstated to say Svelte can use signals, but if he did do the magic, I couldn't find the magic when I was looking today. We have a React component that's capable of, say, of rendering a Svelte component. And so when we need to, we just bail out. We drop that component in, the Svelte component where the props and all the magic happens.
I think Svelte's pretty damn cool, but the only downside I've found is like if you're using AI, it's not that great.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
AI, you better be using Tailwind,
Tailwind,
React,
and maybe Next.js.
Yeah.
like Next.js. We're not using that. I've had pretty good luck with
There's a recent Hacker News article is basically like React is killing innovation because
saw that one.
it's the default.
I
Yep.
saw that one.
Like
It's the
people
default,
actually say
yeah.
like front end engineer and they
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
React developer. They're not the you know.
So how would you use like a Redux state, or would you not really touch
But we
Redux?
subscribe to, we actually do. So this is also one of the things that led us to wanting to use more signals and wanting to use the models to back every one of these widgets.
Okay.
The original architecture from before I joined was Redux everything.
Yeah.
And there's still an ass ton of Redux powering this whole app. Every widget has an entry in our Redux store, which we have by ID and we can look it up and all that jazz. So one of the things we have up here is like this little X icon. It's actually called a channel selector. You drop it down, you get these color pickles, so you can put this on the orange channel, and then you can put another widget on the orange channel. I don't think, or maybe these accounts and position widgets at the bottom make sense. I might put them both on the orange channel, and then if I double click a account here, then I'll only see the positions for that account in my positions widget. And all that's done through Redux. We update Redux. But because we don't want these widgets actually being really aware that Redux is there, because we'd like to get rid of Redux, we subscribe to that value in Redux, set a signal, and now the widgets only care about the signal.
Okay.
The reason we want to get rid of Redux is we also have a desktop app, which is an Electron app, and it renders every one of those widgets, whatever widgets the user wants, as separate windows. And then you have your main context, and you use IPC to communicate between them. We thought we were really intelligent, and we're using Redux as our IPC there. So anytime Redux changes, we serialize the Redux store, push it out to all the other windows, which then propagate the changes. And it normally works pretty good, except we have one widget which isn't shown here. It's called our locates and borrows for short sales. It's a thing that pays the bills, I gather. We have a couple of admins in there because locates have like, normal stock trading has a finite downside. If you buy Microsoft for 500, you can lose 500. With a short sell, if you short Microsoft at 500, you could lose infinity dollars. We have a lot of admins have to approve the trades of their traders in their firm. And so the admins will have the locate widget opened up, and the approvals they need are coming in. But they can come in hot and heavy, really, really fast. And there's so many updates happening in Redux that it brings the Electron app to its knees. Nothing else will update. It just stays there frozen as we're trying to reconcile all that stuff. So we'd like to get rid of Redux for that reason. And we're trying to slowly decouple from it, but that is not an easy task because Redux is spidered into everything in this app. So you just subscribe. You just take the Redux store and we subscribe to whatever value we care about in that store and then set the signal update in the model. Then it works well. So we use RxJS, we subscribe to a lot of those streams and then just set signal values with them. And then other places we just have simple getter setters, like when I change that channel, I just set the channel. And my model's smart enough to know that, I better go set this on the on Redux too. And so it stores it on Redux for us since we still need backwards compatibility, but our widget only ever cares about the signal.
So you're kind of using React as the backing, like, source of truth-ish, or both for the most part, and then
You mean Redux?
everything, Redux.
Yes.
Sort of, yeah, Redux, and then you push that out.
That's
and
our-
actually use signals to actually render.
The biggest thing to migrate, when we go to save like this layout, that's what we're saving, is the Redux representation of all these widgets. We push that to the back end, and when we log in, load up this particular dashboard, it'll feed that back to us, we hydrate Redux, and it all hydrates out. So I don't exactly know how we're gonna fully move away from that. So, but we have plans to kind of break it up and not have one big global store of things. The channels are what come to mind because we've talked about that architecture a lot recently. What else is there? I don't know.
Yeah, I have one big Redux store for the app that I'm working on. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff rendering. It's not nearly as bad as this, but I was writing some stuff earlier the other day, and I was like, ooh, this probably could benefit like Signal just because it is, I'm writing a lot of use effects, where it's like, I don't actually need this until it's actually rendered, but yet it's being recalculated every single time that it renders.
That's, well, I mean, if you're using something like Convex or Redux and it's working for you, like, I see no point in doing the signals. This is just another opportunity to,
Yeah.
I don't know, write your own state store.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that caught my attention as you went by is you're saying that your signals code is, hey, just module scope.
Okay, don't recommend keeping it in module scope, because the second your bundle is loaded, right, you're gonna run all that code. And then like for us, most of the places we use it are these widgets. Widgets are kind of like instances. So we actually put all of our models are in classes.
Okay.
And then we just instantiate that model for that widget at the time the widget's put on the dashboard. And all our signal codes in that instantiation model of the class. So we're not actually in module scope.
But you also said you're pushing your business logic, anything that's calculating values, out of your React app and really into
Classes.
plain old JavaScript.
Plain old JavaScript, but classes that we instantiate, we do up.
Which means, I mean, I have React tests that I essentially can't keep up to date because so much stuff has to be mocked for any complicated component. It's like there's all these side effects that you have to be aware of that might happen. There's these queries that might happen, and testing React components that are large, like a scene, not just a little piece of the screen, feels impossible. And so letting
For
your
the
business
most
logic into
part?
React components just has been a disaster for me as far as testability. And so it's like, oh, moving on my business logic to plain old JavaScript, where I could write
So easy to
tests
test.
that are not like,
Yes.
wait and see if anything happens, and then a little bit later check and see.
Yeah.
That
Our
wait for
React
render
layer
kind of thing
is about
crazy.
0% test coverage, but our model layer is
Mhm.
damn near 100% test coverage. And we're trying to get, I mean, it's a legacy app at this point. This app's about 8 years old. We're never going to fully get there. But like, yeah, we just make our React dumb components. Here's props. The props in this case are signals. The signals are backed by a model. And so all we do is test the model and make sure that when we update things in the model, we get the right output.
Right.
It's all input, output, and it's incredibly easy to test because we don't have to worry. We're not doing any of the user click and other crazy stuff. In a few places we do. It's not visible here. We got what we call our symbol picker, which had a major rewrite this last summer because we're starting to trade options now. So we can't just pick an equity symbol like MSFT from Microsoft. It might be MSFT and then a date and then an initiator for call put and then a strike price. And it's a big old long like 21 character symbol. So we have this picker that builds that out. And it's very intricate how it works. And there's an absolute flow we want to make sure is always preserved because traders have a very low threshold for things not working as they expect. And so we tested the hell out of that bit of React UI. But that whole thing is still backed by a model that itself is fully tested. So we know the model does exactly what it's supposed to. But we also test the UI to make sure that when I click on this entry, my cursor focus automatically jumps to the next. It's mostly testing focus management. So, but yeah, getting your code, decoupling your business logic from your UI framework, whatever it might be, will make testing so much easier. And Claude likes testing plain JavaScript a lot more than it likes testing React. The other thing we do a lot too is while we're trying to move away from Redux, we still really like the reducer and action pattern. And so most of our models are backed by their own little reducers. And we find that Claude, in particular Claude, really understands those quite well. You can drop a reducer in and say, I want this to do this now, or I want to change this, and it does a phenomenal job. It can just look at the reducer and understand your logic and make changes. Like we said, Tailwind React, the reducer pattern's been excellent in the AI world. So, yeah,
Thanks, Dale.
no problem. Trying to think of any other talks we should start having coming up. I don't know if I can give a full night on it, but I was thinking of graphite for stacked PRs. That's something I think most people don't know about, but would love if they had the chance to use it. I know
Graphite for stack
It
what?
took me a long
Stack
time to
viewers.
figure that one out and understand it.
I'm just starting an evaluation of Graphite, and I have
love
the
it so
what are
much.
stacked PRs blog post
It's a bit of a mindfuck at first.
Did it take me like 2 weeks of you being like, no, watch this again, no, watch this again? It took you and me like, it took me a while to like actually understand it, but once I did, I was like, oh.
I remember actually reading about them from the React core team, and they kept talking about like
Okay.
GitHub. The only thing we really want from GitHub, I wish we could have stacked PRs, and that just, like a little brainworm that stuck around with me. And when I heard about
Yeah.
Graphite, I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. But,
What's a sec PR?
okay, so you work on a feature,
Uh-huh.
and you're done with that.
Yep.
And now your next feature depends on that feature. So you branch from that.
Yep.
You can go to GitHub and, right, you can open up a PR to your main branch, and then you can open up your next PR to that feature branch you're working on, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
That's stacks PRs. In a nutshell, that's all it is, but that's a giant pain in the ass to
It
manage. Because all of a sudden you realize like, shit, I gotta go down and fix something in this bottom layer. Now you gotta propagate that change up through your other layers. And let me know, now your dev branch, your main branch, whatever's moved forward, so now you gotta get those changes in, propagate them up.
Oh, yeah.
Graphite does all that for you.
I've been in that hell many.
It's a hell, it
That's the
sucks.
only way I need for it, so.
Yeah,
I
stacked
just told them
PRs is what, I think it comes out of Mercurial. Isn't that what Facebook uses internally, is Mercurial?
No, they have their
own
something-
system?
They use something different.
They probably developed their own system, just like they developed their own
might-
PHP, but, yeah, I know
They
use
developed
it
React too.
So, what's that?
They developed React too.
Yeah, just a small little thing,
Okay.
so.
And AI glasses.
React's probably about the only thing out of Facebook I like. I don't like their product, and I don't like most of their other stuff, but React is